Yo Joes! This weekend past I picked up Cloudburst's glider at a toy fair. It was in a bin with other beaters, shells, broken GI Joe toys, and I am not exaggerating when I say that it was literally rolled into a tube. It was so scrunched, it was so rolled that it was actually cylindrical. I used a hairdryer to straighten it out. First I gave it a soapy bath, but because it was rolled so badly, I held it up to the guy and I was like, how much for the glider? He was like, $5. That's Australian dollars, which is probably about $2.50, maybe $3 US. And at that deal, especially since it had its cannon, I was not going to turn it down. In fact, I was very excited to have it. I have Cloudburst back in Cape Town. Now I have his glider in Australia. Hopefully we'll be able to bring the two together eventually. I'm always curious to try these things out, because if you know GI Joburg, you know we have a fondness for testing out the flying toys. Anything with a gimmick, we love to play with it. I think it's become more important as an adult, because when you were a child, you maybe strapped a figure to it and flew it a couple of times before you were like, okay, let's get back to the game, thanks. Now that you're an adult and it's hard to find people to play with, playing with your toys and their gimmicks has become so much more important. Let me know in the comments if you agree that all of a sudden gimmick toys give us an opportunity to play a little bit more expansively, since we're not concocting massive adventures that span weeks and weeks and have continuity and everyone from the neighborhood comes over. I mean, sadly, I think those days are gone. This is how we play, and this is how we do it on GI Joburg. I have my favorite test pilot in lieu of the actual figure being around. This is Spy Troop's Slipstream. Some years back, he was piloting a battlecopter on the beach. We're going to see if I was successful in flattening it. I mean, I didn't want to keep working it too much. Mind you, I used a hairdryer, not a heat gun. A heat gun might melt this plastic. A hairdryer is it's benevolent enough to not cause any damage, but it's amazing how it's kind of flattened out after it was completely scrunched. Just speaks to the resilience of this material. Really is kind of learning the lessons of the Falcon and Viper gliders of the decade prior. So in he goes. It's a little bit of a cramped fit. I've got his knees bent. They're not fully on those pegs because, it would be a terrible shame if we shattered the pegs, but they are kind of in there. Let's give it a go. The last time we did a glider video, there was quite a strong prevailing wind. This is a lot stiller, so I'm not going to go into the wind as much. Maybe it is coming from that direction, so we're going to aim that way and just give it a few toots, and hey, this might be a complete waste of time. Who knows? Dear viewer, you have rolled the dice on this video, so let's go. Right, I think I know what the problem is here. It's desperately trying to roll itself into that tube again. No matter how much heating and bending I've done, it's not enough to break that pattern. You're always going to see one wing dipping and the other one staying straight-ish, which means that it goes into this crazy corkscrew maneuver and just keeps doing it, barrel rolling over and over and over again until it hits the ground, which is suicidal for a glider. Ambulance. Don't worry, the cops haven't found me just yet. So poor Slipstream had more crash landings than happy ones, sadly, because once it starts barrel rolling, it digs into the ground as opposed to a nice, graceful feet down landing. Well, this hasn't been a complete bust. I've learned some things about aerodynamics for these old gliders. The Cloudburst glider might be my favorite GI Joe one. I always had Skymates as a child. Camo, you can't go wrong with that. But now that my tastes have changed a little bit and I'm all about the 90s being as 90s as 90s can be, this just is delicious. It's not aggressive enough or spooky enough to be one of the Cobra designs, but it's still exciting visually. It's not something as pat as like Stars and Stripes or Camo. This is GI Joe being GI Joe of the 90s, and it's two complementary colors with a third just mixed in for like just pure tastiness. I mean, it's always curious to me that these gliders, which are supposed to be fabric, have like essentially mechanical paneling and rivets, like an aircraft hull. Maybe these are meant to be rigid and made of, I don't know, flexible steel. Who knows? What are your explanations? I do know that if you are a fan of the Deke animation series, this was perhaps easier to animate than SkyMate's camo pattern glider, because these were the standard gliders that everyone used. And not just as gliders, let me tell you. If you had a stricken Storm Eagle jet and you had to bail out, you didn't have a parachute, one of these extended from your back. It's amazing. So a lot of fun in that series, and the fun is now unlocked because I now have Cloudburst's glider. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I will try and correct its angles, but I needed to know how it flew. And it was fun. Yeah, a few little attempts out here in the sun. Day well spent. Yo Joburg, everybody. Play with your toys. Bye.